Welcome to the final installment of my Murder at Castle Nathria card review. If you've been watching these videos all along, thanks for your support. I appreciate you hanging in there. If this is the first video that you found of mine as far as these Castle Nathria card reviews, there are other videos in the series. Basically, I'm just reviewing the cards as they're revealed, and so if you're interested in my thoughts on previously revealed cards, you can check out those other videos. They'll be easy to find on my channel. I also want to wrap up with some final thoughts on each class and the set as a whole. So jumping right in, Warlock card that's been recently revealed since my last video. Suffocating Shadows, 3 mana. When you play or discard this, destroy a random enemy minion. This is basically Deadly Shot for Warlock. Deadly Shot's not good enough to run in Hunter, and I don't think it's going to be good enough to run in Warlock either. There's just better removal Warlock has to be able to put into a deck. Interesting text on this card, though. When you discard this, there's not a whole lot of support for discard Warlock right now, but looking into the future, if discard support gets printed, maybe potentially this card is something that could be played down the line. Likely at least one expansion. I can't even imagine they would have enough cards to be able to give discard Warlock in the mini set for the Murder at Castle Nathria expansion. So possibly in the future, but right now it's just bad. I don't think it's going to see any play whatsoever. Warlock as a whole, definitely we've seen that imps are going to be an archetype for Warlock. It's going to be something new. It's really hard to predict how strong things like that are going to be. Murloc Warlock, I think, was looked at as being a potentially strong deck, and it just isn't. So we're going to have to actually get in the game, find out what other decks are strong and popular to see if Imp Warlock is actually going to be strong enough to make it. One thing that I would definitely take away from this, though, is Warlock gets, in my opinion, some much-needed card draw. With this impending catastrophe, drawing a card for each imp, so you can put a very small draw package into any Warlock deck and really ramp up your draw. And then with Warlock, you know, you could be a control deck, it could be a curse deck, it could be like a naval mine deck, or even like a humongous owl deck. Just having that card draw, and then with the mithril rod to be able to discount the cards in your hand, I think Warlock's going to be able to do some fun things. And it should be an interesting set for Warlock. Hopefully Warlock going to see a little bit of a power spike. It's been one of the lesser classes throughout Throne of the Tides. Neutral minions, I actually want to skip this for now. I'm going to come back to the neutral minions at the after I've reviewed all the other classes, because I'm going to have some callbacks, I think, on some of those cards. Demon Hunter, Sinful Brand, 1 mana. Brand an enemy minion. Whenever it takes damage, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. I don't think this card is good enough to see play. Ideally, when I think about this card, I would think that you would want a board of tokens, and then you would want to trade those tokens into minions on your opponent's side. So you play Sinful Brand, you trade like 4 tokens and get 8 damage. That's probably not going to be good for Demon Hunter. We're not going to be wanting to generate a lot of tokens. So I don't think this card is going to see any play whatsoever. Dispose of Evidence, give your hero +3 attack this turn. Choose a card in your hand to shuffle into your deck. I think this card is really, really strong. We've kind of seen a theme with some of these Warlock cards, kind of these 4 cards right here, of, you know, trading cards for extra power. So, you know, give your hero 3 attack for free is insanely strong, but you have to pay the cost of putting a card back into your deck. Just really, really strong. And then we have options to be able to get cards out of our deck, especially Demon Hunter has, in my opinion, some of the better card draw from all of the classes. And then specifically, you know, when you combine this with something like the weapon, draw until you have 3 cards, it's not going to be that big of a drawback, or rather it's a drawback that's going to be mitigated by how we're able to build the deck. So when you look at these cards, you know, you kind of see them fitting together maybe as a package for an aggressive Demon Hunter. You're going to be putting down big statted minions that your opponent's going to struggle to remove. And then I potentially see the deck playing things like Fury, like Dispose of Evidence, Chaos Strike, and being able to finish your opponent basically with burn spells. So I think there's definitely going to be an aggressive Demon Hunter archetype, and I'm thinking that it's probably going to be pretty strong. The other cards that have been revealed for Demon Hunter is the Relic package. Relics to me look like they're going to snowball really hard. I think that Artificer's Yamax is you know, just a super strong card. Again, I've reviewed these previously if you want to see a little bit more of my thoughts, but as a package, I think this is going to be a really strong package for Demon Hunter, and it's going to be something interesting to experiment with. The cards are a little bit slow. Potentially, you may have a trouble in the early game. Potentially, you can get run over by an aggro deck, but there may be some things we can do deck building wise to overcome that. But I think the Relic package is going to be strong, and it should certainly be fun to play. Taking a look at Paladin, a couple of new cards here. Service Bell, 3 mana, discover a class card from your deck and draw all copies of it. This is really interesting. This is like what I would consider to be a deck builder's card. Again, it's going to be hard to say how good this is. The fact that it's in Paladin kind of makes me think that it's going to be worse than it would be in other classes. But you can build your deck in such a way that you can tutor out exactly the cards that you're looking for. So definitely an interesting card here. You know, at worst, it's a 3 mana draw 1, which is bad, but you know you can at least somewhat target what you're trying to find in your deck. And a 3 mana draw 2 of you know, 2 copies of a specific card could be relatively strong. Could also be strong, you know, to just use this to target you know, something like a legendary or a Cariel, the hero card, so on and so forth. So interesting card. Definitely going to have upside for the deck builders, and we might be able to do some interesting things with this. Divine Toll, 7 mana, shoot 5 rays at random minions, give friendly minions +2/+2, deal 2 damage to any enemy minions that are hit. So this card feels pretty strong to me. If you're ahead on board, it's kind of like a win more card, and if you're behind on board, you know, potentially this thing is going to put out, you know, 10 damage into the minions on your opponent's side. So probably likely going to be better if you have a board developed. Just being able to add 10/10 to your side of the board is going to be really strong. It's a little bit expensive. It's 7 mana. I've mentioned before, you know, once you get up to like 7 or 8 mana, these cards may not necessarily see a whole lot of play just because of how expensive they are and how we see, you know, typically Hearthstone games go. It's also a holy card, which means it's going to have, you know, synergy with like Garden's Grace. So could go into a holy paladin deck. Could also go into like a pure paladin deck. But it seems to be a pretty good card. Paladin Legendary, the Countess, 7 mana, 7/7. Battle Cry, if your deck has no neutral cards, add 3 Legendary Invitations to your hand. And the Legendary Invitation is discover a Legendary minion from another class. It costs 0. This card is insanely strong to me. I think it's going to be an auto-include in any slower moving control Paladin. I could even see it going into, you know, possibly even like a Quest Paladin if we're able to get enough 1-drops and then curve the deck out a little bit farther. I kind of think about it as like a Queen Ajara. It's going to be a little bit weaker with the Discovers because it's not going to target only the Colossal minions. And certain classes do have weak legendaries, but the fact that you can Discover increases your chances of at least one of the 3 being a useful legendary. And then just being able to put it in play for 0 mana is going to be really strong as well. I think the card is insane. There's just so much value in it. And once you're able to play 0 mana legendaries, you know, again, potentially Colossals, potentially just big bodies for 0 mana hitting the board, it's going to be a really good card, I think, and definitely something that's going to see play in Paladin. Moving down to Warrior, the recently revealed cards. Riot, 2 mana, your minions can't be reduced below 1 health this turn. They each attack a random enemy minion, so if you have a board, you can potentially use this to clear your opponent's side of the board, or at least do some damage. This is going to have some interesting synergy with, you know, some of the other cards that could potentially be run in a Warrior deck, so moving on down to the Anima Extractor, 2 mana, 1/4. Whenever a friendly minion takes damage, give a random minion in your hand 1/1. So we're kind of seeing that there's going to potentially be like a hand buff Warrior deck. And so, you know, if you have this on the board and then you play Riot, all of your minions on the board are going to take damage unless they're already at only 1 health. So you can maintain your board, even though it's going to be a low health board, and also buff up minions in your hand. I think, you know, this combo definitely has potential. There could be a Warrior deck that's going to come out of this in terms of like a hand buff Warrior. Looking back over here at the Crazed Wretch, 2 mana, 1/4, has +2 attack and charge while damaged. I feel like this is a kind of card that you can actually build a win condition around this card. So going back to the concept of like a hand buff Warrior, you could potentially buff this thing with Anima Extractor and Riot, also with the weapon that we're getting ready to talk about. And you know, there's still other things in the game like Inner Rage, like Cruel Taskmaster to be able to give this even more damage. Charge is something that Blizzard has kind of moved away from printing because of how strong it was. We do see it in limited numbers of cards in Warrior. I feel like this has the potential to be really strong and really good. We should be able to build a deck that's going to utilize this as a win condition, potentially using things like To the Front and being able to copy it with the Faceless Manipulator. So I think we're going to be able to do some things here. It's pretty interesting. I'm almost positive that this card sees play. These two, they're going to have to be tested, but this should be really good, I think. Conqueror's Banner, 2 mana. Reveal a card from each player's deck 3 times. Draw any of yours that cost more. My initial thoughts on this card is this is a control warrior card. This is going to allow you to be able to, draw your high costing cards and just get them in your hand. And then I thought, control warrior doesn't necessarily need more card draw. Control warrior felt like it was in a good place as far as card draw and the things that it could do. Potentially, though, you could play this in a more mid-range or even aggro warrior deck, possibly going back to the idea that I've been presenting about a hand buff warrior. If you only draw one card, it's bad to pay 2 mana and only draw one card. It doesn't have a body associated with it. But at 2 mana for 2 cards starts to sound really, really good. So this card definitely has potential. You might have to be careful about the kind of deck you include this in, as far as, having too much cheap stuff is going to make it less likely that you're able to draw. But it's definitely interesting, and I think this could potentially be a good card. New weapon here, 3 mana, 2/3, Imbued Axe. After your hero attacks, give your damaged minions 1/1, infuse 2/2 instead. So again, thinking about a deck where you're going to potentially play Riot, now you have a bunch of damaged minions on the board, you swing this and increase their stats by 1/1 or potentially 2/2. Could be interesting there. Again, this doesn't buff the minions that are in your hand, but I think it could still fit into like a hand buff warrior style deck. The minions hit the board, and then you're also buffing them on the board. So warrior has a lot of other ways to be able to buff minions in hand. So potentially, I think, could be looking at a possibly new archetype as we move into the new expansion for warrior. Suspicious Pirate, 3 mana, 3/4, Battle Cry, discover a weapon. If your opponent guesses your choice, they get a copy. Pirate card, first thing I think of is Pirate Quest. I don't think it's that good. It is an extra pirate we could fit in the deck for only 3 mana. I feel like we have enough cheap pirates in the Quest Warrior deck, and discovering a weapon just doesn't necessarily seem all that good. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of play out of this pirate, and then potentially giving your opponent a weapon. It should be pretty straightforward, I would think, on the discover as far as what weapon you're going to take, and then of course if you play it in the same turn, then your opponent is guaranteed to be able to get the weapon as well. So giving your opponent the same weapon that you pick may not be the best. Rolling on down to Priest, a couple of new cards since my last video. 4 mana, Partner in Crime. Battle Cry, summon a copy of this minion at the end of your turn. I think the card is insane. It definitely sees play in some kind of a Priest buff deck. In and of itself, 4 mana for 2 5/5s is not all that great. But, if you play this in conjunction with like a give a minion 2/1 and draw a card, the location here, you turn this into a 4/6, and at the end of your turn you have 2 4/6s, then that ends up being a really strong turn 4. So get the location on 3, hold it, play this on 4, and get a couple of 4/6s. So definitely a lot of potential here. And then of course, as the turns go on and you're able to spend more and more mana, Priest of course has lots of ways. You think about blessing something like this. Turn 6, you have this and bless, and you're going to have 2 7/7s on the board. So Tempo Priest or Buff Priest, definitely I think this card is going to see some play here. Mysterious Visitor, 2 mana, 2/3, reduce the cost of cards copied from your opponent by 2. I'm going to go ahead and say I think the card is bad. I think Thief Priest is going to be more of a meme deck. And, there's going to be a lot of times where you're going to play this and you're not going to have any cards that you copied from your opponent in your hand, so nothing's going to get reduced. Thief Priest, I just see it as being a meme deck. I don't think this card is going to be that good. Identity Theft, discover a copy of a card in your opponent's hand and deck, 3 mana. So it's interesting, it's going to be 2 cards for 3 mana, but you're discovering copies of cards that your deck has no synergy with. This is going to kind of play into that Thief Priest thing that I was talking about. I really don't think it's going to be all that good. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is a bad card. The Light It Burns, 1 mana, deal damage to a minion equal to its attack. This is 1 mana hard removal for a lot of minions. There's a lot of minions that have attack equal to their health or attack more than their health. To me, this is just really, really good removal. If a Priest deck needs cheap removal, this is going to be a good option. It's also a holy card. Priest, of course, has ways to be able to tutor out specifically holy cards. So I think this card could actually be pretty good. Could see some play here. It's going to depend on if the popular Priest archetypes actually need that cheap single minion removal. Clean the Scene, 5 mana, destroy all minions with 3 or less attack, infuse 3 6 or less attack. It's just more removal for Priest. I don't know that Priest necessarily needs this already. With Priest has so much removal that affects the entire board. Thinking about things like Light Bomb, also Whirlpool. It is going to be the cheapest of the options, so it's going to be playable earlier in the game, but I don't know that Priest actually needs that additional board sweep style of removal. Also important to note here, this is a holy card. This one's really up in the air for me. I'm going to, my initial thoughts are it's probably not good, not going to see play, but we're going to have to see how things are going to be able to shape up. Coming on down to Shaman. Gigant Totem. We have a 10 mana 8/8, cost 1 less for each totem you've summoned this game, so it's a giant that's going to support the Shaman Totem archetype. Again, this is going to be a new archetype that Shaman's going to have access to. I don't think the archetype is going to be very good. I'm assuming it's going to be experimentation, and I'm more than happy to be wrong about that. But I don't think that Totem Shaman is going to be good. So pretty much if Totem Shaman is good, this card is likely going to be good. You know, a free 8/8 or a cheap 8/8 can potentially be really strong. And of course, if Totem Shaman is bad, then the card is bad. So I'm kind of leaning more towards the it's bad, won't see play side. Crud Caretaker, 4 mana, Battle Cry, summon a 3/5 elemental with taunt. So for 4 mana, we're getting 4/6 worth of stats on the board, just kind of split up. I don't think the card's going to be all that good. I think there's better cards that we want to be playing really in any of our decks. I just don't think the card is going to be that great. Criminal lineup, 8 mana, choose a friendly minion, summon 3 copies of it, overload 2. I think it's just too expensive. I don't believe that it's going to do enough for the cost of it because, you know, it's 8 mana this turn, but then it's also overload 2 for next turn. So it's going to limit the possibilities of what you're able to do going into the following turn. I don't think the card is going to be that good. It could be something in the future. Potentially this could find a home in maybe something like Evolve Shaman. If you evolve like an Alakir and then you're able to summon 3 additional copies of it, maybe you find lethal, but even putting this in Evolve Shaman, you're just kind of hoping you get something worth summoning 3 copies of. So sometimes it could be good, sometimes it could be bad. I'm going to say that the card is probably bad just because it's not going to be consistent enough. We're not consistently going to have minions on the board that we would want to spend 8 mana to overload to be able to get 3 copies. Also have a new Shaman weapon here, 2 mana 1/3 Carving Chisel. After your hero attacks, summon a random basic totem. So again, it's totem support for Shaman, 2 mana 1/3 weapon. I don't see Totem Shaman as being all that good. It really kind of depends on the Stone Right, being able to give your totems some attack. Potentially, if you can get this in your card, and then things with like Bran and Bolner, maybe you could give your totems lots of attack, but it's going to depend on being able to find this one specific card, and Shaman doesn't really have a way to be able to tutor this out. So I'm, again, going to say if Totem is a good deck, it's going to be a good card. If it's not, it's going to be a bad card. I'm leaning more towards the bad side. Coming on down to Rogue, a lot of the secret package has been revealed since my last video. A 2 mana Double Cross secret. When your opponent spends all their mana, draw 2 cards. I don't really think this card is all that good. I mean, 2 mana draw 2 is okay, but as time goes on, people are very quickly going to realize that this card, I decide when my opponent gets to draw these 2 cards. So if I feel like, okay, you can have your 2 cards, I'm going to spend all my mana, I could choose to float a mana a couple of turns just to make sure they don't get the card draw. So I'm not sure how impactful this is actually going to be. And it's kind of going to go, if the secret package in Rogue is good, it could be good. If the secret package is bad, then it's just going to be a bad card. Typically, secrets are bad cards. A 2 mana Kidnap. After your opponent plays a minion, stuff it in a 0/4 sack. So a little bit more detail about this card was revealed on Twitter. This is a secret. It's in play. Your opponent plays a minion. That minion is placed in a 0/4 sack on our side of the board. If your opponent then kills the sack, their minion is returned to their hand. So it kind of functions sort of along the lines of a freezing trap. It doesn't increase the cost when it goes back into your opponent's hand. We've also learned that it's going to keep any buffs that a minion that goes in the sack, it's still going to keep its buffs as it returns back to your opponent's hand. So again, it's a nice card for tempo, but really it's going to depend on whether or not the secret package is good. Secret package is generally bad in every class. I don't think it's going to be all that good. Sticky Situation, 2 mana. After your opponent casts a spell, summon a 3/4 spider with stealth. I do think this card is good. It has the drawback of actually being a secret, but this card is pretty good. Just being able to get a 3/4 in stealth in play because your opponent played a spell is actually pretty powerful. That's a good card, but unfortunately, again, it's going to kind of go the way of the secret package. You probably don't play this card without playing other secret card support in your deck. A Private Eye, 4 mana, 3/4, Battle Cry, cast a secret from your deck, combo cast 2. This card is really strong. Being able to get 2 secrets out of your deck is really good. Again, depending on how good the secret package as a whole is in Rogue is going to depend on whether or not this card is good. Also, it has the drawback of every time you draw a secret, you're just sad. You don't want to draw the secrets. You want your secrets coming out of your deck with this. So it just kind of leads to the idea that Secret Rogue is probably not going to be consistent, and the secret package may not really be all that strong. Halkias, 4 mana, 5/4, Death Rattle. If you control a secret, store Halkias Soul inside of it. It resummons Halkias when triggered. I'm not sure you would even want to run this card in a Secret Rogue deck. It just seems too low impact. It's a 5/4 body, and it doesn't have Rush, it doesn't have Taunt. So even if this minion comes back down on the board a couple of times in a row, it may just actually not do anything. I feel like I could see plenty of games where my opponent lands this and it just doesn't matter. I don't care about this body that's on the board, so I don't think it's going to be all that good. Even if the secret package is good, I'm going to say that this card probably doesn't even make the cut to be able to be in a good Secret Rogue deck. Druid, 6 mana, 7/6, Battlecry, draw a Death Rattle minion and gain its Death Rattle. Death Blossom Womper. I can see this card as being pretty good. There should be some interesting Death Rattle decks that are going to come out of Druid, and certainly this would be a key part of it. Widowbloom Seedsman, 4 mana, 3/2, Battlecry, draw a nature spell, gain an empty mana crystal. So for so long it feels like people have been telling Blizzard, nerf Guff, nerf Guff, Guff is too good, Mulligan win rate is way too good, and they've kind of doubled down. This is like Guff Jr., and we can actually run 2 copies in any Druid deck. You draw a card, you gain an empty mana crystal, so it's ramp. It also has a body that goes on the board. This card is actually disgustingly strong, and I think it's going to go really in every single Druid deck that's not just a pure aggro deck. It's going to go in ramp Druid, it's going to go in really kind of any late game Druid, alignment Druid. Just a disgusting card, guaranteed 100% to see play. One of the strongest cards in the set for sure. And I believe we covered these other cards previously. Taking a look at Hunter, couple new cards since my last video. Collateral Damage, 8 mana, deals 6 damage to 3 random enemy minions. Excess damage hits the enemy hero. It's too expensive. I don't think Hunter needs it. It's not going to see play. I do have a couple of questions about how the card works that could change my opinion. If your opponent has 1 minion, does it still get hit 3 times, or does it get hit once, transfer the damage, and then die? I feel like that, say your opponent has a 3/1 on the board and this hits it, I'm assuming it only deals the 5 damage once and not 5, then 6, then 6. So this really feels more of like a Hunter removal card, more so than a Hunter burst card to be able to finish off your opponent. I'm assuming it's just too expensive and it doesn't do enough. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this card is bad, and it's really not out on a limb. 5 mana legendary card, Erelon, Battlecry, summon 1 of each dormant wild seed. So you're going to have dormant wild seeds on the board, and this is actually going to summon an extra copy, is the way that I take this card. The wild seed package as a whole, I think, is actually going to be really strong. It should be interesting. It's something fun, something new for Hunter. Actually, just based on looking at the wins that I have with each class, Hunter is actually my favorite class. It's the class that I've played the most of, so really looking forward to getting my hands on this this Wild Spirits package. Should be good, and Hunter's actually gotten, a pretty strong set here. So going back up to Druid, just final thoughts on the class. I've been forgetting to do this the last couple of classes. Unfortunately, I'm a big doofus, but I think Druid is definitely getting a strong set of cards. Druid's getting a nice little power spike. Rogue, it was disappointing to see the secret package. I don't think it's going to be all that good. And Rogue does have a few things with the legendary Necrolord Draka, Sinstone Graveyard, Serrated Bone Spike, and Door of Shadows. These cards are all good. They're going to see play. Rogue possibly still lacking just a little bit of card draw to be able to go off with cards like Graveyard and Necrolord Draka. But I think Rogue, as usual, is going to be in a good spot. Shaman, they got a lot of totem support, which is interesting. We'll have to see if that archetype is actually going to be able to take hold. Again, I'm leaning towards that just kind of being bad. And then also a lot of new support being printed for Evolved Shaman. I do think Evolved Shaman is going to be a thing. Hopefully it just doesn't end up being the meta tyrant that it was before. It's definitely frustrating to play against. Priest, I think, has gotten a really strong set. This card, again, I think is great. Pelagos should be a really good card. The location is good. I think that the Thief Priest cards are going to be kind of a meme, but overall, I do think Priest has gotten some good support for buff decks. Maybe things that could go in something sort of along the lines of like a Wig Priest or, a Blessed Priest, things of that nature. Warrior, Crazed Wretch, I think is going to be strong. I think there's the potential for a new like hand buff warrior archetype for this expansion, and definitely going to be some interesting possibilities that we can do with this. But overall, I feel like the warrior set is weak, and I'm not sure I see enough here to actually bring warrior back into being a good playable class, at least as far as standard goes. Paladin is Paladin. Paladin is almost never good. It is interesting, the support that was printed for, Dude Paladin, as it was called previously, Silverhand, Recruit Paladin. I do think there may be just enough support in the set to give Quest Paladin a try. That's something that I'm going to try. That's a direction that I want to go. Again, I think this card is insane, probably one of the stronger cards in the set, so we'll have to see how it goes from there. Service Bell could potentially make the cut in something like a Quest Paladin just to be able to grab 2 of your 1-drops to be able to advance the quest. Demon Hunter, definitely strong in the set. I think I did speak about this, but definitely 2 stronger packages, kind of with like, I would consider this to be the aggro package, and then the relic package, and could be some overlap in the 2. All this stuff may actually even go in the same deck, but Demon Hunter I think is going to be in a great spot. And I actually remember to go over my final thoughts for the Warlock class, so getting back on track. Coming on down to, let's see, we covered Druid, we've covered Hunter. Mage is setting up to be just an annoying class. Mage also got some secret support and solid alibi. My thoughts on this: I hate this card. I wish they wouldn't have printed it. It's going to just be very annoying to be able to try to kill a mage, unfortunately, with that. But secret support actually revealed since my last video. Chatty Bartender, 4 mana 4/4 at the end of your turn. If you control a secret, deal 2 damage to all enemies. Feels like bad removal. All enemies, that means it is going to hit the hero, but it's kind of like a 2-card consecration is the way I think of it. It does have the 4/4 body, but I don't think it's going to be great. And new Mage Legendary Orion Mansion Manager. After a friendly secret is revealed, cast a different Mage secret and gain 2/2. So the wording is unclear. I don't know if it actually casts a secret from your deck or if you have to have it in your hand. Of course, being able to cast from your deck is significantly stronger. But I'm not sure that Mage Secrets are actually going to be good enough. I'm not even sure that people are going to experiment all that much with Secret Mage. I think it's probably just going to be a bad archetype. Secrets in general, again, are just really weak. Overall, this card definitely sees play. It's just a way to buy time, and it's just really, really annoying. The Volatile Skeleton package, we're going to have to see actually how good it is. With the payoff card being 8 mana, this really has to end the game. It has to remove your opponent's board, and likely it has to do significant damage to the enemy hero. Potentially you can just kill him. You could find some way to have like a Bran on the board and then play this. Potentially maybe the deck could run like a Mailbox Dancer to get that extra coin and be able to Bran and play this, and surely you'd be able to kill your opponent with that much damage coming out. So it'll be interesting to see, again, a new Mage archetype. We don't know how good it's going to be, but it's interesting, and it's going to be definitely worth playing. The location probably gets played regardless just because it seems pretty good. And Frozen Touch, I think this card is really good. Basically, Frostbolt has been reprinted with a potential upside. This is going to see play in Mage, and definitely should be a pretty strong card. So we're going to swing back up to the neutrals that I skipped earlier. Again, there's just going to be a couple of callbacks here on some of the neutral cards. So when you're reviewing new cards, neutrals are really easy. Neutrals are almost always bad. They're just not strong enough. So when Blizzard designs these cards, class cards are made stronger than neutral cards. That's why you don't see neutral cards seeing a whole lot of play. If you see a deck with a lot of neutral cards, either the deck is bad or we're just in a meta that the power level is really low. But with more and more sets coming along, we're going to see less neutrals, I think, in the meta. So it'll be pretty easy to go over these. Stoneborn General, 10 mana, 8/8 Rush, Death Rattle, summon an 8/8 Gravewing with Rush. Too expensive. I'm not sure that this even sees any experimentation in like a Ramp Druid. It's a bad card. Stoneborn Accuser, 5 mana, 5/5, infuse 5, gain Battlecry, deal 5 damage. Card is bad. It's not going to see play. Steam Cleaner, 5 mana, 5/5, destroy all cards in both players' decks that didn't start there. This is a tech card for things like Thief, Rogue, Thief, Priest, and but it actually has to be in the deck in order to be able to be destroyed. This is like a really weird fringe tech card. Card is bad, never gets played. Sinstone Totem, 1 mana, 0/3. End of your turn, gain 1 health. So this would see play strictly in Totem Shaman if it's good. I haven't even tried to build the Totem Shaman deck. It's possible that this card isn't even good enough to go in that. But, you know, something like this, if it hits the board and it sticks, and, you know, you can potentially give it attack with the Shaman Legendary, the Stone Right, maybe. It's going to depend totally on the Totem Shaman archetype again. I think it's going to be bad. 4 mana, 2/5, Scuttlebutt Ghoul, Taunt, Battle Cry. If you control a secret, summon a copy of this. So you can see the Priest, 4 mana, 2/5, is really similar to this. You can see this is kind of like the neutral version, and it's significantly less powerful. It's conditional. You have to have a secret in order to be able to summon a copy of this. And 2/2/5 minions, they're just not really all that good. You know, you think about the 6 mana Druid card that summons the 2/2/7 turtles with Taunt, and it's tradable. That card is better, and it doesn't see play. So this is a bad card. It's not going to see play either. Roosting Gargoyle, 2 mana, 2/3, Battle Cry, give a friendly beast 2 attack. It does not have the beast card itself. This is a bad card. We don't want it in any deck whatsoever. Muck Plumber, 5 mana, 5/5. All minions cost 2 more. This again feels kind of just like a fringe tech card. I'm not sure that you would ever want to put this in any serious deck that you're playing. If you do, this goes in a tempo deck. You're trying to slow down your opponent and weaken their plays for the following turn. But it also affects us the following turn as well. I think it's a bad card. We don't want to be playing it. Masked Reveler, 6 mana. Rush, Death Rattle, summon a 2/2 copy of another minion in your deck. This is a 4/4. This card maybe has some potential in Death Rattle decks, something like a Death Rattle Druid, if we're trying to set up, you know, like a Mind Druid, or possibly a Humongous Owl Druid, along with the other Death Rattles that Druid has access to. I think this card does have potential. It could see some experimentation. It could see some play. It's not so strong that I think, oh, this card is great, but it's going to be something to keep an eye on. It wouldn't surprise me if this snuck into a Death Rattle deck. Certainly, I think too expensive for something like Death Rattle Rogue, though. I really don't think you would want to try to put this in something like that. If you did, you would really be hoping that you hit it with like the Trickster Smokescreen play. So not good enough for Rogue, possibly good enough for a Death Rattle Druid, though. 3 mana, 3/4, Invitation Courier. After a card is added to your hand from another class, copy it. Bad card, meme card, not going to see play. Dredger Staff, 1 mana, 1/2, Battle Cry, give minions in your hand +1 health. I'm going to give this card my sleeper pick of the expansion. I think this card could be good. You could play it in something like Handbuff Paladin. I think it goes into like Quest Paladin. Just being able to give those smaller minions an extra health could potentially be okay. I think you can play this in aggressive decks. It's going to make it harder for your opponent to be able to clear off those earlier minions. So if you think about playing this in like the Demon Hunter deck, now your 2 mana 4/4 Bibliomite is going to be a 2 mana 4/5, which makes it significantly harder to kill, in my opinion. The 5 health is just a lot better than 4 because of the breakpoints and the minions that are being played. So I think this is actually going to see some play. It's going to be interesting. Dinner Performer, 3 mana, 2/3, Battle Cry, summon a random minion from your deck that you can afford to play. I think this is likely a bad card. It's just too random with the minions that are in your deck. You'd have to build your deck specifically, and then you have to hope that you don't actually draw those minions before you draw this. I'm going to say it's bad. It could see play in something like, you know, maybe the Death Rattle Druid deck that I would be theorizing, but overall I think it's probably a bad card. Crooked Cook, 2 mana, 1/4. At the end of your turn, if you dealt 3 or more damage to the enemy hero, draw a card. I feel like this is just bad card draw. Any aggressive deck that we're going to see likely has access to better card draw, so I really don't think this is going to see any play whatsoever. Creepy Painting, 3 mana, 0/6. After another minion dies, become a copy. This is just bad. Not going to see play. Anonymous Informant, 2 mana, 2/3. Next secret you play costs 0. Again, just a bad card. Do you really want the 2/3 to be able to get a free secret? Also keeping in mind that like Mage Secrets cost 3 mana, so then it doesn't even make it totally free. I think it's a bad card. There's going to be better options for secret decks. Murlocula, 4 mana, 3/4, has Lifesteal, so a little bit of neutral healing in the set. Infuse 4, this costs 0. Typically, cards that cost 0 will end up finding a way into aggro decks. Infuse 4 could be a little bit harder to get. You know, it's going to depend on the deck that it goes into and how the game plays out, but I'm assuming this is going to at least see some type of experimentation in an aggro deck, and it may or may not make the cut depending on how well it performs. Party Crasher, 8 mana, 7/9, Battlecry, choose an enemy minion. Throw a random minion from your hand at it. Bad card, too expensive. You can't control what minion it's pulling out of your hand. It might actually just not do anything whatsoever. And it could pull a minion out of your hand that has a battle cry. If the minion isn't actually played from your hand, you don't get the battle cry effect. So pretty sure this is just a bad card that never sees play. I don't think it's even good enough to see experimentation in like a Druid ramp deck. It's just not going to be good enough. Theotar, the Mad Duke, 4 mana, 3/3, Battlecry, discover a card in each player's hand and swap them. Legendary minion, it's a tech card, it's combo disruption. Generally speaking, tech cards are just bad. Unless there's a really strong combo deck that's being played by 50% of the ladder, you're never going to want to intentionally put this in your deck. And, you know, depending on how good or bad your discover is of your own hand, you might actually hurt yourself by playing this. Ashen Elemental, 3 mana, 2/4, Battlecry, whenever your opponent draws a card next turn, they take 2 damage, so it leads me to believe that it's only going to be active for 1 turn. I don't think the card is good enough to see play. It's not going to do enough damage, and I'm thinking there's just so many situations where even if I can draw 3 cards and take 6 damage, that's probably not going to stop me. I'd rather have the 3 cards in my hand. As long as I'm healthy enough, I'm not worried about the 6 damage. So again, I think this is kind of like a tech card against decks that are going to be drawing a lot, and I don't think it's good enough to make the cut. I think it's actually just a bad card, and it's not going to see any play. So that is actually a full review of all the cards that have been revealed for the expansion. That is actually the full 135. So I'm excited, just like everybody else, to be able to get my hands on these new cards. We're going to see new archetypes. Any class that's getting a new archetype is definitely going to see experimentation and could potentially be a good deck. Again, we won't know until we can actually get in and play with it. So, but overall, I think the set looks good. It definitely looks like the power level is going to be going up, and we should be able to hopefully get into more skill-oriented decks rather than decks that are, you know, like jackpot decks where you're just hoping to high roll your opponent, and decks where it feels like whoever draws the 1 or 2 good cards in their deck is going to be the player that wins. That feels like what the current meta is. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I know you are too. That theory crafting stream is on the 21st, and again, I'm not a part of that. You know, I wasn't invited to it. So, but there are, of course, a lot of content creators that are invited to it. I know I'm going to be watching. I'm excited to see the new cards in action. And then we're going to be looking forward to the release of Murder at Castle Nathria on August 2nd, which looks like it's actually just a little bit less than 2 weeks away from the time I'm filming this video. So I'm Uncorrupt. Thank you for watching the video.